And we're live. Welcome. My name is Piers Fox. I'm the founder of PSFK and Retail Innovation Week. And this is a special session where we're going to unpack opportunities that are going to help marketers, retailers like yourselves, um, and unpack the opportunities and see how you can activate retail and market this holiday season. And it's obviously an important discussion to be had, especially after the year with that has happened. And it's important that we kind of think about how we can make the customer feel safe and encourage those sales at this time. I'm joined today with my colleagues Scott Latchett and Lauren Lyons, and the format's going to be a kind of classic presentation, and then it's going to be followed by a one-to-one or one-to-some presentation or discussion on a second call for people with full tickets. So if you're watching along, feel free to chat and ask questions. Some of my colleagues will be on chat and talk amongst yourselves. And then I hope some of you will also join us in that full conversation. So please welcome my colleagues Scott Latchett and Lauren Lyons.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us again. It has been a little while since I've had an opportunity to present, but exciting to share the recent round of research that we've done around the holidays. As Piers mentioned, I'm going to be joined by my colleague Lauren, who is a strategist on the research and strategy team here at PSFK. There's a lot of great innovation in recent sort of months that we can apply and think about in terms of the holiday season. And let's bring Lauren on and we can kick off that research.
Hi, everybody. So knowing there's a lot of questions out there right now around the holiday season, we're really looking forward to diving into this report with you and unpacking all the great insights ahead.
All right. As typically, the way that we present this is we're going to just kind of step back and look at a little bit of the context that's sort of guiding the sort of changes that are happening within the marketplace. And then we're going to get into the trends. We have many trends and leading examples to share. We're going to share a slightly truncated version of this, but everyone who's a member will have full access to the chatter researcher that we've done here. But needless to say, let's go ahead and take a look at what's happening as we approach the holidays. So one of the things that we're seeing is that there's just a lot of economic uncertainty within the context of the marketplace right now. Certainly up and down economy, big unemployment figures that are out there. And people are generally sort of concerned about the uncertainty. As a result, we're probably looking at less dollars across the board that are potentially up for grabs within the holiday season. And so we're seeing 32% of respondents saying that they're gonna, likely spend less money than they did last year looking ahead. So not to necessarily say that promotions are gonna win this holiday season, but just something to keep in mind as you have even more reason to be thinking about some of these innovations. And then, one of the things that we're really anticipating this year is that the holiday season is going to be much more sort of drawn out than it has been in the past. Certainly, there are going to be people who are going to be shopping right up to the sort of last minute possible, but we have a much larger percentage of consumers who are looking to get started earlier and do more of their shopping sort of ahead of what traditionally would be that rush. So, we have the statistic here, 39% of shoppers are planning to start shopping in October and early November. Obviously, as we, think ahead to traditional shopping Friday, holidays like Black Friday and Cyber Monday, a lot of that is going to be happening earlier than usual, both in store and online. So it's something that, really now is the time to be thinking about the holidays. And then as we start to think about what that holiday or shopping season is going to look like, we have so many more consumers who are still hesitant about how they're planning to shop, particularly when it comes to in-store shopping. 60% of consumers are planning to pull back on some of that store shopping just because of the risks associated with Corona. And then also you have, more people, at least 2/3 of people reporting that they're going to be turning to the, sort of web or mobile for their holiday shopping this year. That's obviously been something that a trend that we've been seeing, but it's even going to be more so as we think about this year's holiday season. One of the things that's going to be key is, as a result of that, is how retailers are thinking about instilling both efficiency and safety into the context of that shopping experience. Certainly, within an in-store context, consumers are looking for seamlessness and personalization, alongside with plenty of options for how they wish to shop this year. So we see things like home delivery and curbside pickup obviously being much more a component of this year's holiday season. And then alongside that, just sort of shoppers looking for more options in terms of how they shop. So again, things like mobile apps and social media are going to be a big part of that sort of omni-channel mix. And as mentioned, omnichannel is such a huge component of the way that people are planning to shop this year, and that sort of operational piece is hugely important. The way that we like to think about retail is that certainly there's a distinction between mobile and online and social and in-store shopping. But really the way that from a retailer or brand perspective, the way that you should be thinking about that is how all those channels fit together to create a much better and improved experience for consumers. And so as we think about things like safety, more consumers, 47%, are thinking about buy online, pick up in store. So again, even if they're doing the vast majority of their shopping online, the store itself is a really important component of the sort of fulfillment aspect, and then specifically thinking about that sort of quick in and out of coming to the store, getting what you have there, and even potentially freeing up some consumer time. So if they do want to shop in store, that they have that available to them. And then as already mentioned, logistics. Operations are going to be a huge component of this, particularly around fulfillment. So those partnerships with those sort of big fulfillment providers, UPS, FedEx, DHL, etc. And yes, the Postal Service will be hugely important. And already we're seeing that hiring spree starting to take off. UPS is planning on hiring 100,000 additional seasonal workers this year due to the increase in online orders. So, some of the frenzy and chaos of the holidays is going to be there, but it's just going to be shifted in different contexts. And so now as we sort of turn to the trends, we're going to really look at some of the ways that retailers and brands are starting to sort of think about these things and even more as they look to improve their offerings for this season. So as mentioned, we have many, many trends that we've identified through new research and sort of existing research across all aspects of that shopper journey. We're going to look at next-gen e-commerce, particularly the role that content and social media play in there. We're going to look at how you sort of extend some of that one-to-one contact and relationships to consumers, even in a digital context. Certainly, the store is still going to be a huge component of this experience. So all the different ways that the store experience and the operational side of things need to change within that. And then with the holidays, you can't forget about just sort of getting to that transaction and then moving on. There's a huge opportunity sort of moving forward to capture not only the shopper, but the gift recipient, and thinking about what that post-purchase experience looks like. And then underpinning all of this is the operational aspect, which will sort of touch on some of the things that we see as key within this.
So now as we move into the rest of the report, we're going to go ahead and go through each of these trends, highlight a key example for each, and then at the end, we're going to wrap up the report with takeaways to guide you into the holiday season.
As mentioned, first off, we're going to look at sort of next-gen e-commerce driven by content and social, and then looking at some of the key trends within this. So the first idea we really want to explore is the role that content plays within that shopping experience. Content is one of the key ways that people are sort of thinking about just their day-to-day activity online, and there's a huge opportunity there to move from a piece of content that potentially is traditionally been treated as marketing, and move from just a discovery or awareness sort of piece into a shoppable moment. So what we're starting to see is that brands and retailers are rethinking the role that content plays within this experience, and adding levels of interactivity to sort of move people along in that shopper journey.
Yeah, so here we really like this idea of streamlining the purchase path in an engaging manner through content-based programming. So the example we wanted to call out comes from Neiman Marcus this season. They've gone ahead and translated their entire fall campaign into a digital hub for shoppers. They can interact with different stories on there that'll take them directly to making a purchase. So we just think that's a smart way of really streamlining that entire experience.
Yeah, I think there's always a great, the holiday season in particular, there's a lot of great opportunities to sort of put the products in context, that makes it easy for shoppers to understand the value there. Curation is going to be key, particularly as we think about online. And then when you move from that inspiration into that sort of purchase sort of opportunity, I think that's a great way to sort of extend that relationship with the shopper. Live has been something that we've seen has grown, really exponentially within the context of the sort of COVID situation. It was something that had been much larger within the context of the China marketplace, but now we're seeing that be much more of a sort of component of retailers and brands sort of across the board, certainly in the US and Europe as well. And so thinking about taking these sort of eventized sort of aspects of shopping. Again, content is a sort of key component of that. Pulling in some social aspects. Oftentimes it's a celebrity or an influencer that's sort of leading these sort of events. There's a layer of activity or interactivity that's that's a component of this experience. And again, sort of like education, inspiration wrapped up in these shoppable moments. And then again, oftentimes that's sort of tied into new releases, limited edition as well. So there's a lot of opportunity that retailers have here and brands to bring that sort of live component to the commerce experience.
Yeah, so here we've really wanted to highlight this idea of in the moment live purchases. So e-commerce marketplace Shopify partnered with this live stream platform Spin Live. So now merchants on Shopify can automatically sync their products directly to any type of live stream created by leading influencers. So we just thought that was a really smart example of how one retailer is really bringing this to life.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, obviously Shopify has been a huge beneficiary of this sort of shift, this acceleration into digital. And, they're very smart about their partnerships as well as the sort of infrastructure that they're putting in place to, capture all of these different components of what's necessary for someone to not just like begin selling online, but then do so in a sort of advanced capacity as well. And then, as hinted at, we wanted to think about what the drop model means here. I think specifically within the context of holiday, you have traditionally these opportunities where, both in a positive and negative sense, where people are lining up at 3 a.m. to try to get in to get these doorbuster deals and things of that nature. Certainly that in the sort of current world we're living in isn't necessarily safe, and probably not the best sort of shopper experience anyways. There's already been a lot of things happening within the drop space, certainly within the sort of streetwear market, and sort of extending outward a lot within the fashion space as well, that are looking at how to translate that limited edition, promotional, sort of heavy promotion into a digital context, and giving people the opportunity to sort of virtually line up, and take a chance at getting a hold of these products, and then sort of, collapsing that payment experience as part of that. So we think this is really an interesting way to think about, capturing what might have been long lines outside of your store, in a digital realm.
And just providing community members with this idea of limited access to items securely, as a way to better engage and then also do so remotely. We wanted to kind of highlight this updated app from Adidas, Confirmed. So it's for street and activewear and sneaker drops. Members of the app, which is free to sign up on, are able to access these exclusive drops, but they can do so more securely now. So you don't have bots and such stealing product essentially from community members. So we just thought that was an interesting way to really activate within your own brand community.
Yeah, and I think that's a really key part of this, is the membership piece. Again, if you're thinking about, the holiday is not just sort of purely transactional, but using this as an opportunity to sort of start to build these long-term relationships, is, in the case of Adidas, this is specifically tied into their sort of loyalty and CRM system. So you're capturing a lot of useful data, and then obviously that can be used in a lot of different ways. But, at the most basic level, you're sort of building in this value for your members, and then using that as a way to continue that level of engagement with them moving forward. So again, sort of continuing in the digital context, but perhaps thinking about how this then starts to move from digital towards the physical store experience, drawing that sort of dotted line. We wanted to look at the role that particularly associates can have in a sort of remote context, as a way to, help provide some of that advice ahead of time, get people confident about the purchases that they're making, particularly in a gift-giving context, and then think about how that relationship can extend into the physical store as well. The first example we wanted to touch on is, again, just less so a one-to-one context, but thinking about how you begin to sort of narrow down the set of choices that are available for consumers. Certainly that's important when they're shopping for themselves, but even more so as you start to think about curating around the gift-giving occasion, and helping them find a narrower set of choices to find that perfect gift-giving option. We're starting to see interactivity, questionnaires, all of these sort of components being sort of a part of that process, and then using that as a way to provide custom recommendations, some level of tailored advice, and then really sort of helping them make more confident choices as they're thinking about making a purchase.
So within this idea of offering curated selections on that one-to-one basis at scale, based on pre-selected and ongoing preferences, one example we wanted to highlight was the Yes, which is a relatively new app-based shopping platform, and their use of algorithms and machine learning combined to continuously create and refine these tailor-made feeds for each of their users is what's really interesting here, and just the ability to really hone in on what makes a good shopping experience for consumers now. So that was just something we wanted to call out.
Yeah, and I think, again, this is geared towards a shopper who's shopping for themselves, but I think a lot of the sort of idea that's tied up in here can be applied to, again, thinking about it's for my dad who's 70 years old, and these are the things that he likes, and sort of moving in that direction as well. And I think there's a lot of value to help with that, sort of suggestions around gift giving too. As mentioned before, and we saw this a little bit within the context of the live shopping trend that we touched on in the previous section, this level of sort of social interactivity with known sort of members of your your peer group or your family or what have you is what makes in-store shopping such a emotional and social experience, and obviously that can be lost within the context of the digital shopping experience. But now, again, we're starting to see a resurgence in, what we would call these sort of like interactive group shopping experiences where you can invite, multiple people into a digital context. And then as you're sort of browsing online through a brand website or what have you, you can begin to share comments and talk about the things that you're seeing, and really sort of bring some of that level of peer-to-peer advice and other sort of aspects into this to make it both entertaining and again increase the level of confidence associated with making a purchase.
Yeah, and so here we really want to highlight this whole idea of encouraging both organic brand ambassadors, but also offering, consumers that real peer-to-peer reviewed authenticity, and it's all within the context of video-based content. So we want to highlight this mobile app Teleport. They're essentially turning everyday users into their own virtual stores. So consumers are able to sign up, create short videos, tag products that they already own and love, and then their friends and followers can then just directly shop each of those products. So an interesting way to kind of cultivate these selling agents that come from a very authentic point of view.
Interesting in that context to sort of think about the, this as a digital wish list for, the kid that you can never figure out what to buy for, or whatever the case is. Just as a different way to sort of bring that experience into a digital context. And, again, I was thinking about how fun it would be to bring the stress of, going to the mall into a digital context, and then being able to do it from your home instead. Anyways, as mentioned, as we sort of, think about the relationship that someone can have with a store associate and begin to sort of cultivate that online and then pull that into a store experience, we see the rise of, sort of by appointment video consults. I think there's a lot that this enables within the broader sort of retail experience. You're getting a lot of that sort of pre-shopping out of the way for consumers, giving them the opportunity. And again, this can exist purely in a digital context, but you're essentially inviting an expert into your home. Perhaps you're showing them items that are in your closet or items that are in your home. They're giving you person-to-person advice, which can then result in purchases or direct you into the store where that relationship can continue. And we'll touch on some of that in-person appointment shopping as well. But I think these things kind of tie in nicely to one another. And it's just using all of the mechanisms that we as, sort of general consumers are using to keep in touch with one another, primarily video calling capabilities.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of examples out there right now of how retailers have kind of pivoted to virtual consults where they used to offer these great courses and classes and services in store. So one example we wanted to highlight here is Lululemon actually, and how they've turned their Omni Sweat and Omni Educators programs into these virtual concierge programs where Members can easily access in-store associates through appointments, live streams, social channels, and receive that same level of like one-to-one interaction that they would have in store. So just the convenience level of that, but also you're not losing, you know, that added service that they really went all in on in their in-store locations.
Yeah, and I think this is great. Again, the role of the associate is so key to any sort of shopping experience. And certainly when stores were closed, this was an opportunity to sort of bring that value online. But I think there's just so much more that can be done here, as Lauren sort of touched on, you know, beyond the sort of, you know, shopping experience. There's you know, this all these added value sort of layers that can be sort of become a part of that. And then again, if you start to develop a great relationship with the sort of associate that works at your local store, then that just creates more value within that. And again, thinking about how this is a gateway to start to capture, you know, customer data and information, and then to sort of pull that through the entire experience. You know, as hinted at again, we're going to look now at what the in-store experience, specifically around shopping, how that's changing and being elevated within the context of the sort of current situation that we're living in. You know, we're seeing a lot more of that sort of, you know, putting safety front and center in terms of, you know, how we're thinking about saving people time, bringing that sort of level of contactless sort of shopping into the physical store as well. And then just again, pushing much more of the experience onto the mobile device and activating that within the context of the store. So the shopping by appointment piece, again, is just sort of thinking about what we were just talking about, but then like pushing this into the store experience. What I think is great here is you have, depending on how it's structured, you can get a lot of information up front from consumers. It doesn't have to happen in a video call first, but it certainly can, where you can prepare for their arrival. Different stores are thinking about this in different ways, but pulling product ahead of time, maybe there's a few things that they're ultimately looking for, and then you can bring in some additional accessories or other add-ons as a part of that. Thinking about getting the right associate who might have expertise around televisions or home entertainment systems or what have you, and making sure that they're available to walk that customer through that sort of one-to-one journey. There's a lot of interesting ways that this sort of like layer of appointments can add a lot to the way that service is delivered within the context of the physical store.
Yeah. So as retailers really consider how best to offer these personalized experiences within a safe environment, we're really seeing a lot of appointment-based services come to life right now. One example to call out is the Atelier Butte by Chanel, which is their New York City-based beauty workshop and concept store. And pre-pandemic, guests were encouraged to create a client profile prior to their visit, or once they arrived in the workshop, a associate on hand would offer to help them create one. Now it's functioning as an appointment-only location. So guests interested in visiting the workshop first create this profile online where they can enter, you know, what they're looking for, what they're interested in viewing in store, book each of their visits, and then set aside or highlight what they would like to test. And then once they're in store, guests are encouraged to only carry around their phone, and that's how they can actually complete purchases during or after their visit. So there's just another way of really capturing a lot of consumer info in a way that feels natural, but is also really useful to the consumer.
And again, what Lauren just touched on is the sort of notion of how the phone becomes a component of that in-store shopping experience. And so we're starting to see intentionally retailers begin to sort of design that into the physical store experience. In some instances, it's through sort of scan to learn technology where you're scanning a QR code through your phone's camera, or activating a sort of context-aware in-app shopping mode that begins to change the way that the phone or the app offers up content, experiences, and information when you're in the actual physical store location.
And as contactless engagement really becomes this new expectation, mobile activated moments are definitely this point of innovation in store today. And for this, we wanted to call out Nike Rise, which is the new Nike concept store in China. And inside, Nike Pulse app members are able to use both Nike Scan to Learn and Scan to Try to really quickly interact with different displays, different products, learn additional information, virtually try on different products, and all the while, at the end of the day, be able to check out an app as well, should they choose. So just, again, another example of just how creating the store and tech, intertwining the two for a really useful experience.
Yeah, and from a Nike point of view, what's quite interesting is that they are, intentionally doing this not only to create a better sort of customer experience, but then they are capturing a lot of amazing data about how people are using the app within the context of the store, making very intentional decisions about what happens within the context of the store. They have their Nike Live experience, which is leveraging the purchasing behavior of locals within a specific sort of geo-defined area, and then using that to update the merchandise based on what seems to be sort of trending and popular within that location, just at the sort of scratching the surface. So there's this has, very operational benefits beyond just offering a great customer experience as well. And then again, we just sort of touched on this, but this sort of notion of, what can be a very sort of friction-filled point of the experience, which is the checkout experience. There's certainly a lot of innovation that's sort of happening there. But again, one of the things that we think is hugely important just sort of moving forward is offering options to your consumers. So within the context of that layer of flexibility, giving them the ability to sort of easily check out within the physical store. One way of doing so is leveraging the mobile device, both as a contactless sort of form, but then also giving alternate sort of options for payments as well.
As an example of this mobile checkout experience right now, we wanted to highlight CVS, which partnered with PayPal, and now users who are checking out within any of their pharmacies are able to simply scan their mobile PayPal or Venmo QR code. So just as retailers consider how best to streamline their in-store POS systems, whether that looks like a partnership similar to CVS and PayPal or just a QR code integration at checkout, we definitely see this continuing as a consumer expectation.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see, I mean, Venmo, again, as part of the sort of PayPal ecosystem, is quite popular from, skewing younger. There's an interesting sort of social component tied into that. And so, if that's the dominant way that, peer-to-peer people are exchanging, funds with one another, it makes sense to sort of extend that into, the retail / specifically the physical store. And, this is a very, very operational sort of kind of partnership right now, but I think there's opportunities to do more within that as well. And just Venmo as a platform to sort of tap into, there's a lot of interesting ways that that's sort of being used right now, which I think is, there's opportunity that's still unexplored there. And then finally, within the context of this, we really wanted to think about what that, sort of buy online, pick up in store experience can look like. A lot of it is, almost replicating what, we've classically come to sort of think about from a fast food perspective, is the sort of drive-through lane, and literally, pick up your items and on the go. It's not quite been designed into sort of that realm within traditional retail, but certainly a lot of different ways that sort of curbside is now, an expectation among consumers. And then there's a lot of opportunities for sort of, thinking about that even more removed, where you're just popping the trunk, your items are going inside and you're getting on your way. Mobile is, again, the sort of driving force behind that as well.
Yeah, so allowing customers to remain either in their car or even in their own home, drive-through fulfillment capabilities are really providing both that safety element as well as the convenience that consumers are really looking for now. So an example of this that really brings that to life is Tanger Factory Outlet Centers. They're offering this virtual shopper service where orders are fulfilled on site by stylists, specialists, and they can either be picked up via curbside pickup or they can have these orders be delivered directly to your house. So just an added evolution there of the curbside that we thought was interesting.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting here is, as we've sort of walked through the presentation, you can see how this is kind of combining a number of the things that we've already touched on, as you have that sort of, virtual relationship with an expert who then is sort of bringing to bear all the merchandise that's available at all these various, sort of different factory stores within the context of an outlet mall, pulling those right products, helping make recommendations. And then, if you want, you can literally just drive up and pick up those items and go, or it can happen specifically, just in a digital context as well. As mentioned at the start, we think post-purchase is always a big opportunity that often is sort of dismissed as part of that, sort of larger shopper experience that you can begin to offer. And specifically thinking around the gift giving experience, there's a lot that can be offered within, how people are experiencing that sort of out of the box experience of a product, how you're providing a level of troubleshooting that helps ensure that, you're getting something complicated in a box and it needs to be set up or put together, that level is there so that you're not waiting until after the holidays to sort of complete that experience. And then, of course, as a component of this, you always need to think about the return experience sort of built into this. As much as there's been a lot of effort sort of put into helping people choose the perfect gift, you can never sort of bet on the taste of the gift giver or the gift recipient. And so thinking about how you make that a convenient part of the experience as well. This sort of notion of embedded onboarding is something we're sort of really big on. There's a lot of different ways that retailers and brands are starting to think about this. Again, I think the unboxing experience is a huge opportunity to sort of build value into that relationship. And so you have everything from bringing in sort of on-demand support as a part of that through text or video. You have, sort of education and content being sort of embedded into that sort of product experience. And then, even in the example that we're showcasing, really sort of thinking about one-to-one, very experiential sort of, adding that component to it as well.
Thinking of how to help customers really fully realize the value in their purchase, retailers we're seeing are embedding these services into each purchase, and that can range from educational to support. And so one thing that we wanted to call out here is Ford's off-rodeo event. So coupled with the release of their new Bronco, they're offering this 2-day multi-city event where they're actually going to provide new owners with hands-on trainers or experts on off-roading. So you get to participate in this great event for free for if you bought the car. And then others who are just Ford Bronco enthusiasts can join as well. So we just thought that was an interesting way to make sure that they're getting the most out of their purchase.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, is that sort of optimization of the product is a huge component of this. And then, I like this ad that Bronco has, or Ford has done with this Bronco, where again, you might not be able to afford the brand new Bronco, but if you're still a huge fan, you can participate in this as a sort of aspirational owner as well. So I think all that stuff is very hugely important. Again, sort of reverse logistics and returns, very important as a part of what's happening in today's marketplace. Thinking about how you offer more flexibility, extending that return window, recognizing the sort of realities of what customer life looks like today. And then again, as much as it's about providing options in terms of fulfillment, it's thinking of how you provide that same level of care as a part of the returns process.
Definitely. And so as we're really seeing consumers continue to shift online, and then this whole trend towards contactless fulfillment preferences, retailers and brands who can provide these types of flexible services are definitely going to stand out. One example of this coming to life is the D2C apparel retailer Everlane. So in addition to offering their curbside pickup and sidewalk shopping services, they've started up offering curbside returns as well. So they have associates stationed outside who are able to process those for you simply in person, but from a safe distance.
And then to sort of put a pin on a lot of what's underlying this from an operational point of view, we want to look at some of the key ideas that are sort of beginning to be a component of what creating a great customer experience ultimately means. And so we're going to look at things that are not only sort of about ensuring safety, but thinking about how what sort of pieces that you need to have in place in order to bring some of these experiences to life. That might not necessarily be something that's customer facing. And so again, as we think about the sort of in-store shopping experience and bringing a level of comfort and sort of safety into helping people understand when's the best time for them to visit a store location. We have this idea of density forecasting that we're really sort of big on right now, where retailers are starting to think about monitoring the traffic and footfall, both on a sort of real-time basis, but then also sort of thinking about where traffic spikes are happening and things like that, and helping put that front and center to consumers so they can be smarter about understanding when they want to potentially come and visit a store.
With this idea, we have been seeing a lot of this, but for the most part, it's been a lot of single stores or retailers. And so this is an example where it's more of a community neighborhood based, and Link New York City, which provides Wi-Fi at New York City based kiosks around the city. They've teamed up with Foursquare. So now they're actually able to offer neighborhoods the average foot traffic numbers at their local stores. And I just think this is a really useful tool to think about how you could partner with, local digital services where you can let your customers know, now's an optimal time to shop with me and here's some peace of mind.
And then again, thinking about this from the standpoint of this role that the store plays within the broader sort of level of offerings that you have as a retailer or a brand, specifically as it comes to that last mile. Again, we're thinking about all of the various ways that people are shopping, the buy online, pick up in store, the pure play sort of, buying an item and having it delivered to your home, and sort of everything in between. And so thinking about how you create a universal sort of level of inventory that's accessible to all sort of associates across a network of stores, and then also then having the sort of capabilities in place to fulfill from a store as a part of that broader experience. And obviously at scale, that begins to create a lot of efficiencies and can expedite how quickly you can get an item to a customer ultimately as well.
So, considering all of the different ways consumers are really expecting to be able to receive their orders, whether that is in person, from online, ship from store, or curbside, we're really seeing this idea of multi purpose locations come to life. So, we wanted to call out Best Buy here, who's in the process of testing a ship from store hub model. And so they're dedicating about 250 stores to this as the holidays approach, with that expectation of a lot more online orders coming through. And they've highlighted these different locations based on their proximity to shipping carriers, different neighborhoods, and then the ability to deliver same day orders. So just an interesting way to kind of approach that multi-purpose location.
And then, tied back into the notion of the sort of payments experience, again, both in a digital only or, in-store context, is, we have what I touched on at the beginning, which is the sort of high level of uncertainty that's existing in the marketplace right now. More than ever, people are cost sensitive. They're cutting back on some of their spending. And so bringing in a layer of that flexibility and sort of recognizing the realities of what, customers are grappling with right now, offering the ability to, give them options that are perhaps a little bit more comfortable, is the sort of notion of the buy now, pay later, is a big part of this, where you have consumers who maybe have not traditionally had access to lines of credit, and now have much more options available to them in terms of, doing very low interest or no interest financing plans around significant payments. And this is something that we've seen spiking significantly during COVID, but it was already sort of gaining popularity, particularly with younger consumers. But we expect that, these are options that are going to be much more palatable, to all consumers as they consider their holiday spend.
Yeah, and so definitely as we approach the holiday season, I think this is going to be something that a lot of shoppers are using. And we've seen quite a few retailers start to test or adopt this whole buy now, pay later approach. So one we wanted to call out was the direct-to-consumer furniture retailer, Burrow, who partnered with Affirm, which is a financing service that offers customers this ability to choose layaway, both at checkout in store, in its showrooms, and online. So just another way to offer that convenience while opening your product up to a wider assortment of consumers.
And so as we, sort of close out here, we wanted to walk you through what we see as a number of the sort of big takeaways from everything that we've touched on during the presentation. As mentioned, we hinted at a lot of the trends. Some have not been touched on specifically in the presentation, but we think this does a nice job of sort of, looking across all of those to highlight some of the big things that we think are going to be important. And so I will touch on some of these. Lauren, perhaps you can do the even numbers and I can do the odd ones, and we can sort of go through that way. But, first and foremost, I think, as we think about more of that experience moving online, how you begin to sort of recreate what perhaps would have existed only in a store previously, and sort of thinking about that level of live in various contexts. So interactive, providing education, a level of personality and entertainment as a part of that. And then certainly the social layer is ultimately very important as a part of that as well.
Yeah, and then also just this idea of offering these personalized elements, whether that is guidance and curation or onboarding and such, just really translates to this added value for the consumer. So something to keep in mind.
And we're seeing that, especially within the context of visiting a physical store, that considerations around removing friction, ensuring safety are going to be, front and center in the context of, sort of consumers' minds as they start to approach the holidays this year. So again, we expect this to be a lot more of an extended holiday season, but then certainly ensuring that you have the right solutions in place to kind of give consumers options based on what their level of comfort is, and then helping to remove as much of those sort of like pain points along the way.
Yeah. And then also another idea is just offering better control for consumers over their experience, whether that's in-store or online. We know contactless checkout, contactless engagement is really going to become this expectation now. So just making sure that you have the tools ready to facilitate that.
Yeah, and then again, perhaps even more so than in years past, the fulfillment piece is going to be a huge challenge, but a huge opportunity for retailers and brands this holiday season. So thinking about all the various ways that people potentially, would like to receive their products, what role the store plays in that experience, and then ultimately thinking about how that, can sort of be a component of brand loyalty moving forward.
And then just as consumers really start to push towards this online purchasing or sending gifts directly to relatives from online as well, this whole idea around, the out-of-box experience and how important that will probably be this holiday season can definitely be a moment for retailers to connect and also just help their consumers experience their brand in the way they want them to.
So that brings us to the end. I will just sort of leave us floating on this slide for the moment. Again, I think we probably hit about 65% of these trends. We think there's a lot of exciting opportunity that exists for retailers and brands this holiday season. Hopefully a lot of what's happened over the past 6 months has, sort of begun to prepare you for these things, but these are some of the keys that we think are really going to help with a successful holiday season, and then ultimately just sort of way of thinking about retail moving forward.
Thanks so much, Scott. Thanks so much, Lauren. Thanks so much for the great, insightful report. I'm sure you all agree. It was a great framework of opportunity. Helps you understand how to approach this holiday season. Scott and Lauren spent a lot of time advising Silicon Valley companies, retailers, international brands, help them understand the strategic direction they could take, especially when it comes to retail and the customer experience journey. If you ever need help, you should think about calling upon them. And you can still talk to them more about this holiday session. If you'd like to join a group intimate session right now, if you have a full ticket, you can click through on the link that you've already been provided. Or if you look at the chat box, hopefully there'll be a link in that chat box which will allow you to buy a ticket to enter that room and have a conversation, ask the team more questions about the research, and actually discuss with our community your ideas. Also included in that ticket is the full report. So if you're looking for the full reports, simply buy the full tickets and we'll send you access to it. Appreciate you coming, and I wish you all the best in this coming season, and I wish you great success. Thank you.